Vice Wrestling Series returns. Dark Side of the Ring, Season 4. New season premieres Tuesday, May 30th at 10 on Vice.
All right, so first off, my name is Nigeria Chambers of Big Gold Belt Media. Evan, how you doing today? How you feeling?
Good, man. Feeling good. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got season 4 of Dark Side of the Ring, which is going to be premiering on Vice on the 30th here. Just want to start off with a soft question of just how are you feeling emotionally? A lot of momentum, a lot of eyes are expecting this. You all have created, alongside of Jason, have created 3 very, very successful seasons. The 4th one is very highly anticipated to the fact that folks are already looking forward to the 5th season. But just for you, man, how are you taking it all in thus far?
Oh man, thanks for asking. Good. I mean, it feels good to get back to, Dark Side, what we do, for lack of a better term. We had a lot of fun last year doing the Tales from the Territories project. It was one that, working with, Dwayne Johnson and $7 was something that was kind of a dream project for us that, it took 2.5+ years, maybe even more to get off the ground. So that was kind of a little detour we took, and we knew we couldn't do both of these things at the same time. That would have just spread us way too thin. So that was a fun exercise. Loved it. And, of course, me and Jason, we love territory era wrestling and the kayfabe, era, if you will. And so it was great for us to kind of exercise our passion with that. But we're really stoked to get back to what we do, Dark Side 4, covering a lot of episodes this time around that we've always wanted to do. And we had been unsuccessful in putting together previously. So it's pretty cool.
That's awesome, man. And again, congratulations thus far. And I'm really looking forward to this 4th season and beyond. I would love to kind of know what's sort of the conversation some of you and Jason have, pulling back the curtains a little bit when it comes down to the chopping block in terms of what's going to be in this season. Like, what is that very, off the record conversation that you two look at each other and say, like, what are we going to do this season? What are we going to tell? What are we going to go after?
Oh man, it is fun at the beginning of every season. What we do is we kind of actually put together a little mini presentation, little PDF for the folks at the network of just here's what we're thinking. And a lot of them are like the wish list titles that we've never been able to do, whether that's for access reasons or we ran out of time or we couldn't put it together fast enough in previous seasons, or literally fans on social media have given us have really shown a specific enthusiasm over one topic, then, we will try to make that happen. And then the other is coming off of Territories again. You'll notice in season 4, there's a lot of territory era episodes, Magnum TA, Adrian Adonis, Junkyard Dog. And I think a lot of that comes from the enthusiasm and just a lot of the general stuff we uncovered doing Territories that we wanted to kind of, also spotlight for a new season of Dark Side. So it's kind of that. I mean, basically we all hop on, we have meetings, we have calls with not just me and Jason, it's a lot of other folks too. A lot of our other producers, story producers, co-executive producers, and we all just bat around ideas and try to figure out what's going to work for an hour, what's going to be dramatic, where can we break new ground, and who's around to tell it? Can we get that firsthand information? Because if we can't, we won't do it. And there's a long list of episodes that we'd love to do, but it's just not enough people around or to tell it, or we haven't, or those people have, not wanted to appear on the show or whatever. So
yeah, and that literally was going to be my next question in terms of what is the biggest challenge or what is the biggest risk factor when it comes to like the finish line completion? Like, what is that one thing or one or couple of things that's just like, all right, now we can't do this, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, it always comes down to the access, right? Like, a huge part of Dark Side of the Ring is kind of the family perspective, or we always try to get that other side of the person. Like, okay, all the wrestlers know how a particular wrestler was on the road or in the ring, but not a lot of people really can know that wrestler, like who that person really is behind all that. So we always try to get the family perspective, and that tends to be sometimes the most challenging. Not always. Sometimes it could be the most challenging in terms of just like, okay, this is what we're about. And, we want to, because it's tough. You're asking people to really kind of relive some of these harder, more difficult memories or traumas that they've had before. And so we always want to make sure that we're approaching it in the right way. and we want to make sure we're leading with our hearts and being earnest and honest, and giving them as much time as they need, in terms to weigh this or not. And sometimes the more challenging thing is that when you're putting an episode together, you got to talk to other wrestlers to get them on board. And sometimes those wrestlers have big mouths, and sometimes they talk to everybody on the internet about what they're going to do. And then sometimes that can kill the deal right there, because then family members can get freaked out, and that's happened to us quite a lot, and that unfortunately kind of happened to us this time around too, a few times. So anyway,
that's a great answer, man. And the next couple of questions, obviously you can plead the fifth if it's something you are unable to talk about, discuss. Mild spoiler maybe, but nothing too hard here. But I am interested because I think what you two do very well, and I don't think get enough credit, especially when you talking about the world of professional wrestling, is the ethics behind you. You all tell good stories. And while it is called Dark Side of the Ring, and we go down that dark path in some of these stories, you can tell there's a lot of heart in terms of doing the research, having the folks involved. You mentioned something that I'm very big on, and it's the therapeutic factor of it, of saying we want to make sure that these folks are okay in telling these stories, which is monumental. And again, you all don't get enough credit on that notion.
Oh, thank you.
And I think you always have the right folks involved, which is also something I'm just so involved with. I'm a film critic before I'm a professional wrestling fan, so like I look through it through that lens in terms of like, no, these two are badass filmmakers here. Like they're gonna have jobs forever. Y'all do amazing work, man, for real. But I do want to know, one of the things I always get giggity about is who's going to be the narrator this season. Are you able to share that possibly?
Oh, I mean, we're still working with Jericho. We've been working with Chris now, since season 2, and so Chris is still on board. Actually, we're going to be recording with him in a couple of days again for some because all these episodes aren't finished yet. Not a lot of people know that. That we only got like 3 of them are done right now as we're having this conversation, and so we are always having to deliver them just a few weeks before they air. So he's about getting ready to record another set of episodes. But I'm also really glad you said that, because about what we're doing. We always, even though the show is called Dark Side of the Ring, shout out to my mom who came up with that name, when we were really struggling to figure out a name for this show, and we didn't know what to call it, and we didn't want it to be like some bad wrestling pun like Tales from the Turnbuckle or Turnbuckle Tales, or whatever. And so she came up with this kind of evocative title, like that it was about like the mood and the sort of atmosphere of what our show was doing, like visually, which it was. And that's kind of where the name came from, kind of after we had already made 6 of them. So that was kind of crazy. But for us, it's really always been about the human side and really capturing like a way to humanize these wrestlers that we grew up idolizing, who are like larger than life, infallible superheroes. But at the same time, now, like with the benefit of hindsight and where they are now in life, it's much different. And so we always wanted to bring that weight to who these people really are. And so that normies, non-wrestling fans and civilians, who don't care about wrestling and probably hate wrestling, can look at this and sort of see that actually, these are real people with real lives and real struggles that we can relate to, and who would have thought that, to be able to relate to a wrestler. So that was always kind of like the goal with the show, maybe in another life, we could have called it the human side of the ring, Who knows?
We know how things sell in the world, man. People want to see the controversy before they see the positivity and things, and that's what's good about the show. I mean, shout out to your mom, amazing title.
Yeah,
but it does
my
have.
Mom.
Make sure you cut that check to her.
We've done it.
But it absolutely has a lot of heart into it, and that's what I enjoy. I look forward to like many more seasons. But as we get ready for season 4, much like season 3, you came out swinging with the Brian Pillman 2-parter. It does not look like, and it was, even though it's on the internet, it doesn't mean it's confirmed, but who knows? I would love to kind of know, which episode do you kind of look into for this season, and if you had to give a little bit of discretion of like, hey, people, get your seatbelt, buckle in, this one's going to be a ride, where would that be?
Or to have the tissue box ready? Yeah, I mean, well, there's definitely a few. I'll just rattle off a quick. I mean, I think that the season premiere episode, May 30th, 10 o'clock, Vice TV. Tammy and Chris is one we've always wanted to do. I mean, that's an episode that's been literally we've tried to put together since season 2. Whether it was like writing letters to Tammy in jail, getting correspondence back and forth, or what have you. Chris Candido was a big part of my childhood, and the fact that I was a huge ECW fan, and I always looked at that power bomb off the top rope as like one of the craziest things I'd ever seen. And so it gave us this finally doing it gave us the opportunity to also spotlight him as kind of an unsung talent. I think he was ahead of his time. I think if he were still around today, he probably would be, such a bigger part of the business, because I mean, his size and his style that he was doing in the 90s is now more popular than ever. Anyway, but the Tammy and Chris story is interesting because, and it is a roller coaster, because you look at these two very young, impressionable, kids, really. Chris was sort of this guy who was destined to be a wrestler. Ever since he was 5 years old, he knew he was going to be a wrestler, and he did everything he could, and he achieved that dream. And he met Tammy randomly one night when he was, wrestling, and she never thought she'd be part of the business. She was a pre-med student, and then she got kind of swallowed up into this. And so I think for us, it kind of looks at these two very innocent, impressionable kids who get kind of swallowed up by this industry, and kind of where they wind up at the end of their journeys. Tammy's isn't finished. Obviously Chris passed away way too young, but that is a ride. That's a shocking ride in terms of where they started and where they wound up. One obviously dying way too young, and the other, looking at a pretty serious, charge, a manslaughter charge right now. So it's pretty wild. So that episode for sure. I think that, the Marty Jannetty episode is going to be one that people are going to be talking about. I mean, Marty Jannetty obviously is a super fascinating character. I mean, he was part of one of the most legendary tag teams of all time, the Rockers, with Shawn Michaels, right in that boom period of the WWF. And as soon as the Rockers broke up, I mean, he's never quite been able to live up to that again. And I think, his star has continually been falling since then, and I think it's a thing that our show explores a lot is, what do you do with that sort of post wrestling life? How can you adjust to the post wrestling life? And I think Marty is a snapshot of that, but in a very unique way, because I think that Marty has kind of created his own reality that he's sort of living in. I was kind of saying earlier that I think we found the perfect title for the episode, which is The World According to Marty Jannetty. And I think this episode walks the line with trying to understand really the truth, but also, the fiction and that sort of, that self-created universe that he's sort of perpetuating and living in. And I think it's fascinating. So that one definitely is a ride too.
Okay. Looking forward to the premiere. Chris and Tammy, I did see that online, but I wasn't sure was it true or not. But I heard it from you, so that means May 30th, Vice TV, man. Yeah, that's gonna be a big one there. Yeah, and Marty is somewhere down later in the season. I think they got it listed as episode 6, but we'll see.
That list that's out there. I don't know where it came from. Is not accurate. Marty is the season finale. So. So Tammy and Chris we're starting with Tammy and Chris, ending with Marty. I think that's the way it should be, That makes the most sense.
Yeah, man, I've been really interested in wanting to talk to you since season 1, and while I got a couple of more minutes here with you, I definitely want to give an opportunity. As much as I really want to ask you a lot of questions, I want to give you an opportunity to kind of talk about the other folks that's surrounded around you. While folks do come here for the story, and the big juicy title, whatever the episode is going to be, there's a lot of other production aspects to this that I really truly appreciate. One's the reenactment, the cinematography is top tier. Something else I don't think get enough credit, but beyond that, the score I think is really impactful, really brings the dynamics to things. To give you a moment here, could you talk a little bit about your other cast members and their importance to bringing these episodes to life?
Oh my God, there's so many people that help to make this show what it is. I mean, especially as it's scaled, into the seasons, season 4 that we're in now. I mean, there's so many people. that are just absolute. Like if there was a Dark Side Hall of Fame, you know, there's definitely room for a few classes in there. But yeah, so the reenactments, you know, Jason Eisener, who's my partner in crime here, you know, with Dark Side of the Ring, you know, sort of developed the perfect aesthetic for the show that I think, you know, anytime you're trying to recreate these iconic wrestlers, you know, with reenactments, you know, it's so difficult, so hard to find actors that can live up to that, right? So I think it was genius for him in terms of coming up with this concept in order to keep it, you know, darkly lit, soft focus, kind of leaning into more of a dreamlike quality and kind of letting viewers' imaginations run wild. And I think that goes perfectly hand in hand with, you know, these wrestlers recalling these kind of faded memories from decades ago. I think he came up with a perfect aesthetic for the show. And we've had so many also just skilled, you know, DPs, director of photographies work on the show over the course of the seasons. But you know, we have Andy Appel, who shot season 3 and most of season 2. He is just absolutely an amazing DP, and he's brought a lot of, you know, new visual tricks and aesthetics to the show. And he's also now, since we did Tales from the Territories, he's bumped up and he's actually directed several of the episodes now, and he's also directing most of the episodes for season 4. So that's also really cool. So shout out to Andy Appel, he's the man. And then also got to shout out Andrew Gordon McPherson, who is the composer. Thanks for recognizing that too, because we've always said that I think that really what makes this show successful, one of the main ingredients is, you know, the editing being as punchy as it could possibly be, you know, bringing people up, bringing people down, that sort of dynamic range we always try to get with the show. And the reenactments, of course, but also I think the music helps bring it all together. And it's absolutely insane that Andrew has now, I believe, recorded over 400 different tracks for the show. Definitely well over 400. It's unbelievable that every single episode he sees like the first rough cut, which is like the, you know, the worst, most rough version the episode will ever be. And he knows, he's familiar enough with wrestling, and he basically just gets extremely inspired by, like for Bam Bam Bigelow is a good example, like coming up, like he just got really inspired by his WWF theme song and like growing up in Jersey, you know, and like Bruce Springsteen vibes, and he'll bring all this stuff together and he'll just kind of create this unique palette for that episode. And he does that for every single one. And if anyone gets the chance to get the Dark Side of the Ring vinyl soundtrack from season 2, like you'll definitely see like that's just such a breadth of different genres and vibes and feelings, you know, that he puts together. And it's remarkable. And he's composed every single piece of music you've heard for the entire series. And he's like one of the most vital parts to us of the whole process. So yeah, Andrew, could not do without you, man. Like 100%. Yeah.
Fantastic. Last question for you, Evan, and is as much as I enjoy your work here, and in previous work as well too, I'd be remiss if I didn't take a second to say, what else do you have coming down the pipeline? Whether it's Dark Side of the Ring material or is it just something else you're working on? I think you're a very passionate person, and people with passions that continue to do what they're doing and having fun in doing so don't stop, which means that the gears are turning, the pen is on the paper, things are going. Maybe you hitting up lunch with mom more often to get more ideas. Right. Buddy, what else could you possibly talk about coming down the pipeline?
Well, yeah. So, definitely stay tuned for some more wrestling centric projects, a la either Dark Side or Beyond, that we will be sort of some that will be announced down the road, or some that'll be announced more soon than that. There is a couple of those for sure that we're in talks with Vice on, so stay tuned for those. We also have another series that we're working on putting together. Can't say too much about it, it's not wrestling related, but to me it's a very super close second passion area for me, that was almost just as important, if not more, to me as a kid. So that we're very excited to announce when we can announce it. So we have a whole nother show coming, probably I'm guessing it'll be next year, maybe even beyond, who knows. And then as far as me, like, yeah, man, I mean, I'm always working on side little projects that even if it makes like 5 people happy, I'm cool with. Like, you know, I also, you know, self-publish, weird comic books from the 80s that I've found in dollar bins across America. I found these really weird esoteric comics. Like, I got this here that's on the stands now, Vendetta, Holy Vindicator. So I published this, with my friends out in Portland. And then I've also, got a podcast about movies that I do every week called One Effin' Hour. I won't cuss on your show.
Cool.
Yeah, we got, all right. So One Fucking Hour is our show where we talk about movies that we love for the most part. And we love to go granular on just talking about the movies that have made the most impression on us and diving super deep into the details and the craft and everything that's inspired me and the things that I make, but also just like, really getting into some of the, the best shit that's ever been made. Yeah. So that's it.
That's awesome. That's it. Like he said, one thing. That's it. Continuously working. Tons of content all around. Yeah, that's it for that. That's more like it. I did say that was gonna be my last question, but I just got one quick proposition. I think as this show continues to grow and a lot of eyes are on are just not just wrestling fans, but folks who just love a good docuseries, documentary, whatever it may be. Has there ever been a thought of possibly targeting stories within wrestling that are considered unsolved? And the reason I asked that is because recently we just seen on Netflix with Unsolved Mysteries that with this networking that they have, this sort of attention that is grabbing, a case had been solved. A viewer saw it and decided to say, "Hey, I know something about that." We know that there's stories within wrestling. We know there's a lot of things that maybe we don't know, but you possibly know. But has maybe a shift to more of an open ending format to possibly invite viewers to participate if it comes down to something that may need to be solved surrounding this? Has that ever been a consideration?
Well, it's actually happened before. I mean, with the show, going back to the very beginning with Dark Side, when our very first episode that we made, which was about the murder of Bruiser Brody, the real sort of elevator, water cooler pitch for the show was always true crime meets professional wrestling, for the most part. And anytime we could cover those types of stories, we have. I think our storytelling style and the way we approach the episodes has always been like, okay, here's all the points of view. Here's everybody's, here's the oral history of this subject. And we've always kind of left it open, for interpretation. And we've always trying to let, fans or viewers, maybe non-fans, kind of decide where they sit with all the information that they've been presented. That's just kind of been, I think, our knee jerk in terms of how to formulate these stories. But there has been times, like I can think right now, there's an episode we did for season 2 about Dino Bravo, a wrestler who was, mixed up in the various criminal underworlds up in Montreal, and and that's a completely open case. I mean, the episode actually ends with like a tip line. If you got a tip, like call the number, and that we definitely heard a lot of things after the episode that you're like, damn, I wish we could go back and and who knows, maybe we will do that someday, where we can go back and do because hey, one of the best parts about the like original Unsolved Mysteries was like the update, Unsolved Mystery update, and be like, we got that son of a bitch, or whatever, and it's like that would be cool, because there has been updates on that story. There's been updates on the story about Jimmy Snuka. Like there's things that have come through the pipeline to us like after something's aired. So yeah, I mean, maybe the result of this is to do like the Dark Side updates. We gotta get on that.
There we go. There we go. That's exactly what I was getting at there. Well, folks, you can check out season 4 of Dark Side of the Ring coming on Vice TV on the 30th, May 30th here. Thank you so much, one of the co-creators, Evans here. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much, Vice, for the opportunity today. And I hope we get to talk again a lot more.
Absolutely.
And I definitely have got to check out the podcast. I had no clue you had a movie podcast, so I'm all on that. So I appreciate
we're a bunch of grumpy, opinionated guys, so get ready.
I love it. I love it. All right. Thank you so much for your time today, buddy.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. See you. Bye.